going on vacation tomorrow.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe. Oh,
There are some factors that might be contributing to us not going. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if we get on the plane tomorrow. Yeah, but we're going to Aspen tomorrow to go skiing.
mm-hmm.
Very excited. I don't know if I've mentioned on the pod yet, but I actually bought skis and boots.
Oh, no.
Have I told you that?
No.
Well, I'm telling you now.
Wow,
It's very exciting.
you are a skier.
Oh yeah. Big snow girl over here. I've
Wow.
skied 4 days, maybe 5 in my whole life, but I'm a big ski girl.
Oh my gosh, that's commitment.
I know.
Go ahead.
Well, so basically the idea was like skiing is just ludicrously expensive, and we're going to Aspen, which is also just like on the top range of that price range of how much skiing costs. And so to rent equipment for 3 days was going to cost $250. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, why don't I just go on Facebook Marketplace and see if there's something good I can find?
Mm-hmm.
And boots are like pretty hard to find when you're a skier because you really need ones that fit well. They need to be the
Mm-hmm.
exact right size. They need to be tight, but like not too tight. And I happened to find a guy who lived in Brooklyn who had these ski boots that were like in really good shape. They'd only been used maybe a handful of days. Super nice boots, like $400 originally. And he was selling them for like 200, but he lived in like, it turns out he lived in deep Brooklyn, like deep
Mm.
Brooklyn. And I was like, that's not really worth it to me. But then it turned out he was going skiing upstate, and he was like, oh, I'll just drive through the West Village and you can try them on, and if they fit, great, and if they don't, no worries. And I tried them on, fit perfectly,
Wow.
bartered them down to 150, and they're mine. And then I bought
Wow.
skis from this guy upstate. We decided to go skiing, so me and my boyfriend drove up and picked them up, and they were in amazing shape. Bought those for 80. So I paid 230 for both the boots and the skis.
Now you've got
So
them.
I saved money on the equipment, and now I've got them forever. They're mine.
They're yours.
So it worked out
Way
really
to
well.
go.
So yes, big commitment, but also, and because like I expect to be skiing a lot more, I think it's a really fun activity and I really enjoy it, but also just like also practical. Practical
Yeah.
and fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Are you guys staying at a hotel or like an Airbnb?
We're staying with friends.
Okay.
We're staying with one friend, I think, for the first 4, maybe 5 days,
Mm-hmm.
and then staying with another friend the last 2 days that we're there. So we'll have a little mix.
Nice.
Yeah.
That'll
And
be fun.
then we're going back in April.
Wow.
Yeah, so like 3 weeks after we leave Aspen, we're gonna go back to Aspen.
Cool.
Big ski girl.
Go
Big ski
ahead.
girl.
Yeah. Good thing you bought the gear.
I know. And then we're staying with a different friend out there then. One that I actually know who's one of my friends too. So,
Awesome.
yeah. So that'll be really fun. But I'm excited to like
Mm-hmm.
try it out. Have you ever skied?
I skied once.
Did you like it?
I did. I used the short skis, the little baby skis.
Okay.
And
That makes it
yeah,
easier. Short skis make it easier. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And I had a very good time. It was very fun. We skied in Vermont, and my boots were not well fitting.
Oh no.
I
Were they
took them
too
off and
loose?
I was like, I feel like my feet are being constricted and broken.
Oh yeah.
So, and then trying to
Real.
get them back on. Oh, so I think that they were too tight.
Yeah, it sounds
It
like
was
it.
like excruciating pain.
Well, something I didn't mention before was that I actually own 2 pairs of skis now.
Oh, why?
Because there's like a buy nothing Facebook group, and I posted in there that I was searching for skis, and somebody then after I bought these skis, like later that day, was like, "Oh, I have skis you can have." So I was like,
Oh,
"Okay,
you
I'll
see
take
which ones
them."
you like better.
Exactly. But now I own 2 pairs. So if you ever want to go skiing together,
Okay.
I've got skis for you to use.
I would be open to it. Although I
Okay.
feel like I would want the short skis again just because they were fun.
Well, they're pretty short. I mean, they're not.
Okay.
I'm still a beginner, so I bought beginner skis.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're good for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
I mean, Colorado is close to me.
I know.
Yeah.
Come on out. Come see us.
All right.
Maybe if you're free in the next week, you can come out.
This week will be a no, but I appreciate the invitation. But
April.
maybe. We'll
Okay.
just say
I'll
a big
hold you to it,
maybe.
but no pressure.
No pressure,
Yeah.
but you're coming.
But I'll
Okay?
expect you to be there and I'll be very mad if you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, enjoy. It's going to be so fun.
it's going to be so fun.
Well, everybody,
Welcome to Wouldn't We Like to Know?
with Arielle.
And Linda, the podcast where we get honest, deep, and curious about life's big conversations.
Because we don't have to do it alone.
No, we don't. This week, we're talking about my applause clap 30th birthday. I did it. I did it. I made
She
it.
did it.
And we're kind of talking a little bit about quarter life crises, aka Arielle's quarter life crisis,
Yeah.
and also about feelings around turning 30 and what that was like for both of us because Arielle's already turned 30.
Mm-hmm. In conjunction with the quarter life crisis, we kind of talk about like time and how
Mm.
turning a year older can kind of help motivate us and how that can be a very helpful thing.
Yeah.
We also dive into like how our lives are different now and boundaries in relationships. I kind of talk about my therapy stuff so far since moving to Kansas City and how I found a new therapist that I loved. And we talk about manipulation and
Ooh.
reframing the idea of manipulation.
Yeah.
So this one kind of runs the gamut, but I would say the overall theme is checking in with where we are now and how we can reframe what's going on for us in the moment.
Yeah, and I think also age and just getting older and how we change as we age and the things that we need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you like what you hear, subscribe to the podcast anywhere that you listen to
Ooh.
podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube and subscribe on there. That's really
Hi.
fun.
Hi,
You
people
can
on
see us.
YouTube.
You
Hi.
can see our faces. What else can they do, Linda?
Well, they can also follow us on Instagram at Wouldn't We Like to Know or TikTok. Ooh, TikTok is a whole different place for me. I don't really understand it, but we're on there.
We're there.
Hey, we're
We're
there.
there.
Yeah, you can follow us there. We'll post videos. We post photos on Instagram of our lives. We'll definitely post some photos from Aspen, so you can check them out there. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can also email us at wouldn't we like to know with any episode suggestions or guest suggestions or topic suggestions. Did I already say that? I don't know. You can email us there.
It's wouldn't we like to know at gmail.com.
That's right.
Okay, everyone. See you soon. How was your birthday?
How was my birthday? It was so good. It was very much a self care day. I did all of my favorite things. Well, not all of them, but all the things I did were favorite things. I had a mocha almond croissant from Mazadar, which is a
Mm.
wonderful bakery here in the city, French bakery. And then I went to Pilates class. I walked a dog. I got a
Mm.
facial. I went to a sound bath meditation. And then I went to one of my favorite restaurants, L'Artusi, for dinner. So
Mm.
it was a really nice day.
Good.
Yeah.
And then how was the celebration over the weekend?
Oh my gosh, it was wonderful. Okay, so Arielle knew things that I didn't know. So apparently, my boyfriend had contacted all of my friends and
Mm-hmm.
asked them to send little videos saying things about me and telling me they loved me. And it was just so lovely. It was such a fun surprise. And like there was a slideshow of pictures of different memories from like the time he had contacted my cousin and my mom and had them send like pictures from when I
Mm.
was little. And yeah, it was like wild to see all of those different memories and then yeah, and then there was a video and he had edited it all together. And so like when like you would be sharing a memory or like telling me that you loved me,
Mm-hmm.
which is like I mean, I'm such a words of affirmation gal. Like there's nothing better to me. He would like he had edited in photos like that you had sent him too. So like it would be
Oh,
you talking and then a photo would pop up and then you talking again. It was really sweet.
cute.
So that was just really lovely and it really was so nice. And then we all went out to dinner and we did a little
Mm.
dancing afterwards. And yeah, it was a really nice way to bring in 30, which is also just like
Mm-hmm.
I keep being like, "Oh, I'm not in my 20s anymore." It feels like a weird mental shift, but I don't
Mm.
feel any different.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
How is it? Do you don't feel any different at all?
No.
Yeah,
No, I
I
know.
didn't either. Mine happened in 2020 and
Yeah.
the world was paused and I was like, well,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
I didn't feel any different.
Yeah. Do you feel like it was hard for you to wrap your mind around,
Mm.
"Oh, I was in my 20s, now I'm in my 30s." Did that mean anything to
No.
you?
No. I mean, I had more of an issue when I turned 25. When I turned 25, I had like a little bit of a crisis, but that was also because I was empty inside. But I remember I was 20 when I turned 25, I was like, "Oh my god, I have one more year on my dad's insurance.
Mm.
Like I need to figure my life out. What the hell am I doing?" And not that I know exactly what I'm doing anymore, but just my life feels so much more me than it did when I was 25 that yeah, when I turned 30, it was not a thing at all.
I was thinking about how if I had turned 30 last year, I think I would have had a crisis. But
Mm.
because I've changed so many things in my life in the last year, kind of in anticipation of like, I don't want to turn 30 and be like, I'm still sitting on my hands because I'm scared to like take action in certain ways. And like, I know that I want to do this thing, but I feel so cocooned and like comfortable. And why would I step out of that comfort into the unknown? Like, what if it's worse than what I have now? And I feel like
Mhm.
in 29, I really like stepped out of my nest and out of my comfort zone and followed my intuition and my gut towards things that felt more aligned for me. And so, like, I'm in a place now in my life where I feel like I have no like we kind of talked about it last week, none of my shit is together. Like I absolutely don't have it figured out and things are definitely a lot more uncomfortable than they were this time last year, but all in good ways. Like I'm
Mhm.
moving towards the things that I want and that makes my life harder, but all like in a good hard, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like living with roommates and like but, like, living in the neighborhood I wanna live in and feeling so happy, like, even I went to PT right before this and biking home, I was like, "Oh my god, this is home." Like, it's a perfect day outside, it's,
Mhm.
like, 70 degrees, and I just, like, feel so aligned living here, and my whole street is, like, got trees on it, and everybody's out and walking around, it just feels so lovely.
Mhm.
And, like, my job is so different now and, like, not having to go into the office 7 days a week, 5 days a week.
Felt like 7.
It did. Like, working towards things that feel long-term goals for me versus just kind of like, "Okay, well, I'm getting a regular paycheck every week, but I'm not pursuing anything that makes me feel really fulfilled."
Yeah.
Like, those are 2 big examples for me of how I would have felt really freaked out if I had turned 30 at this time last year, just as
Mm.
to where I was in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've taken the leap on so many different things that like are hard, obviously, but the payoff is so much better. And it just feels good to do something that you've wanted to do for such a long time.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
it does.
keeping a promise to yourself and keeping a commitment to yourself of like, I'm going to continue to follow the that voice inside of me that's saying, this is what I want. This is what I want. Please listen.
Yeah.
Like I just remember spending so many years of my life quieting that voice down and being like, it's good enough. This is good
Yeah.
enough.
Yes, totally.
And like, that's so limiting.
Yeah. Do you feel like
Yeah.
that's what helped you when you turned 32 is, like, having stopped listening to those voices of, like, "It's good enough"? Or what do you feel like was the big shift between turning 25 and having that, like, quarter life crisis and turning 30 and being like, "Oh, I don't feel any different than
Hmm.
I did yesterday"?
Well, I went through such a shift between 25 and 26, which is funny. I
Mm.
feel like having that crisis at 25 kind of opened my eyes to what you're saying about if you'd turned 30 last year, you'd be freaking out, but this year you feel better. Like that's kind of what happened when I turned 25. I was like, I don't want 26 to be this way. So when I turned 25 and I was like, oh, I have a year left on my dad's insurance, I'm going to go into therapy. So that was the first time that I'd gone into therapy as an adult.
Mm.
And luckily, that was mostly covered by my dad's insurance. And so that felt really supportive. And I was going full throttle with acting stuff in San Francisco around like after I turned 25. I was like, I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do this. And that winter, I like booked multiple things back to back and was working with one of my favorite directors on a show and another of my favorite directors. And both of them I'd worked with previously. And like they both reached out to me. So it wasn't even like I had to do any extra work to
Yeah.
get those roles. I just had to like open myself up to, I'm ready to work. I'm ready to do this. And so I was doing more theater work at that time. And in therapy, I was really unraveling relationship dynamics in my family and really hard relationship dynamics in my romantic relationship. And it just felt like this crazy year of growth between 25 and 26. And then 26, which was 2016 into 2017, was when I was getting out of my relationship and I met Jeff, and 6 months later moved to New York. And it was just like
Yeah.
all this shit happened after that year of like uncertainty and the year of I don't want to be in this same place next year.
Yeah.
So when I turned 30, it just didn't, I'd already been doing all of the things that I thought that I should be doing anyway, like all of the growth work. And I was in a relationship that I enjoyed and like had friendships that felt real. And so those like existential questions weren't as big when I turned
Mm.
30
Mm.
versus when I was 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been talking to my therapist about time recently and like the pressure of time and how actually that can be such a good thing, having the pressure of time, because it makes you realize that our time on earth is finite and there's nothing that we can do about that. And so it's like it pushes us into doing things that are more aligned for us and more right for us when we realize, oh shit, like I don't have forever. I have to, if I want things to be different, I actually have to do something about it and take an action.
Mm-hmm.
And I think birthdays are such a big marker of that because there's like a shifting of time in relation to us where we like change ages, you know. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's like those big markers like 25 or 30 or 40 that kind of make us like wake up and be like, "Whoa, I have to do something about this if I want it to be different." And I don't have all the time in the world. I don't have all the time in the world, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like assuming that I live a long and healthy life,
Yeah.
then I have this much of my life left. But then
Right.
there's also the chance that you don't live a long and healthy
Right.
life and something happens. And I don't know. There are times where I think I would, if I die tomorrow, I would be fine. Like
Mm.
I've done enough. Like
Well,
I
you'd be
feel like
dead.
I would be
So,
dead, so I wouldn't have any feelings. But
yeah.
like, if I died tomorrow, then that's fine. And there are other times where I'm like, oh, I hope that I don't. Like, obviously, I never hope that
Right.
I do. Okay,
Right?
we'll say
Yeah,
that
me
right off the bat.
too. Knock
But
on wood, you're not ever dying
never,
for a long
ever.
time.
Yes. But what's a better way to explain that? There are times where I'm like, oh, I really want to see this thing through. And
Mm.
I see like the reverberations of this project years in advance. And I really want to put that time in so that I'm not like looking back and being like, why didn't I start that earlier?
Mhm.
Like having the time feels like such a gift.
Right.
But I think for the most part, most days I wake up and I'm like, this day was good. Like,
Mhm.
if this is the end of me being human, then it'll suck a little bit, but also like it's fine. Whereas I
Yeah.
don't think I could have said that
Right.
regularly like years ago.
Right. Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. I'm also curious what you said about having that feeling of, I wish I'd started this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? Yeah, I'm just curious about that feeling because it kind of, that feels like regret to me. of like,
Mhm.
oh, I wish that I had taken action sooner. And sometimes I kind of feel that too. Like, oh, this is so good. I'm so glad that I moved when I did.
Mhm.
I wish I had done this sooner because, like, I really didn't like living where I lived before. And I could have had this all along. Or even when I think about being 22 and like moving to the Lower East Side, and like that was never really the place for me. Like, that was not a place that felt good for me. Yeah, I think that just like feels like regret to me of like I wish that I had done this quicker. But then I also think I learned things through those experiences and I needed the space to not move and be in that cocoon to work on myself and like really go inward because I was
Mhm.
isolated and like that forced me to feel feelings I wouldn't have felt if I had been in a place that felt more exciting to me.
Mhm.
So I see the benefit of having not moved sooner, but I'm curious like what that feeling is like for you where you're like, "Oh, I wish I'd started this sooner." What's behind that?
So I'm not really seeing it's more that I feel like Jeff says this all the time, but like I'm anticipating my regrets. I'm
Interesting.
anticipating what could be a regret if I don't start this thing. So it's not even that I'm in the future looking back and I regret not starting sooner. It's more like I'm in this moment right now. And I can imagine that if I don't start this project or this idea or this undertaking soon, then I will regret it.
Mm.
And so,
That almost sounds helpful to me.
yeah, no, it's like a helpful thing.
Yeah.
It's like a
Yeah.
motivational thing when we're talking about time. It's like, how can I use time to my advantage? Well, I never want to feel like I've wasted time. And, we've talked about this before, like rationally and in my own mind, there's very little in my life that I regret or that I feel like I've wasted. So it's
Right.
not a real thing for me. It's more used as a motivational thing
Right.
because I think that for me, there have been times where I haven't been ready. And they say,
Mm.
you're never ready, start before you're ready, all of those things. And I agree with them. But I also think just like I wasn't ready at
Mm.
that time. I was ready when I was ready. And that's when I started. And that was the perfect timing.
Right. Like
And
you started when you hit the threshold of not being able to tolerate not being able to take action anymore. Like you that
mhm,
which means that you were ready,
yeah.
even if you
Yeah.
weren't ready.
Right. So
Yeah.
like I don't know, judging myself or like regretting not starting something sooner or doing something differently, I don't really feel that way about many things. Like I'm trying to think because like all of that stuff got me to where I am right now.
Right.
So it's not actually a regret, but like
Yeah.
the anticipation of this could be a regret is enough for me to take action.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same way, like, looking back and being like, "Oh, I wish I had done this sooner," even that feeling is like but I also see the other side of it, knowing that I needed the other thing that I got out of that situation. Like, I think about this relationship that I was in that was really bad, and I'm like, "Oh, I wish I hadn't done that," but I do. I'm really glad I did that. I'm really glad I ran into that fire because the things I learned from that, I wouldn't have been able to learn without going through that experience.
Right.
So it's like, what's the point of having a regret because you did get something out of that that you needed.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have been in it. And like
Yeah.
you learned a lesson from that. And yeah, I guess it's a mindset thing. It's like a perspective shifting thing, like how you choose to look at it.
Mhm. Yeah. I think about my relationship when I was younger from 20 to 26 and it's funny because so much of that time feels like a blur to me. Like I really
Yeah.
don't remember a lot of specifics from that time and I think it would be easy for me to wish that I'd started things sooner during that time or wish that I was more honest or wish that I knew more about like how a relationship would be or could be
Yeah.
and like what a relationship could be for me in the future and those ideas are real but also like having been in a situation like that for that long I am sure as hell not going to be in that situation again Like
Yeah.
I was in that for a long time, and being there for such a long time is like an example of what I don't want. And then that can be very clear to me now.
Totally.
So the idea of like wasted time, I think it's important to like acknowledge, oh, that fucking sucked, or oh, this thing was really hard, or I'm really angry about this, or I'm really sad about this.
Mm.
Obviously, like that's a really important part. But I think like when we can move on to the next step, it can be like, well, what did I learn from this? We talked
Right.
about this with the last pod, but like,
Yeah.
what have I gained from that situation? Even if it's, I never want to be in that situation again,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important, like what you're saying, to not bypass, not like emotionally bypass the situation and just be like, "Oh, I'll just see the positive side of it." Because like we need those like other feelings to learn the full lesson and like to fully integrate what we do want, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like don't just if you feel sad, just don't.
Don't cry.
Don't cry.
Oh, you're crying. Don't cry.
Don't
Don't
cry.
do that.
Yeah, don't feel that.
Okay. I had
Yeah.
a real big cry
Did you?
a few nights ago. And I was up till like 6 a.m. and could not fall asleep and had this whole thing. I had a big
Crying?
old cry. Not the whole time, but a good portion of the time.
What were you feeling? Do you want to share?
I'm not going to share the specifics, but I
Okay.
will share that my new therapist is an angel.
Oh.
I'm obsessed with her.
Oh, I love that.
And I had a session with her yesterday,
Mm,
and downloaded everything that I was feeling, and she just was so good at helping me reframe what had happened and my perception of things. And part of this situation was that I felt frustrated and kind of like left out on a limb
mm,
with a relationship, like in a friendship. And it's newer. And it was
mhm,
funny because she's like, I wonder how you can allow yourself to not feel betrayed in this moment, because
mm,
betrayal is when you really, really know someone very deeply and they know you very deeply, and it's like an established relationship, and they've done something that has betrayed your trust. And that's very
mm,
different from what happened in this situation. Like this situation, you learned something about someone that you're
mm,
still getting to know.
mm,
And it wasn't about them betraying your trust. It was them showing their true character and showing you a part of themselves.
mm,
And even her just saying that to me, I was like, oh my gosh, that is the thing that I tend to do. Like even as I'm starting to get to know someone,
yeah,
if as we're getting to know someone, we're filling in all the blanks that we don't know with our own thing.
right.
So it was funny because she was like, you have such high expectations of yourself, like how you're going to show up in a relationship, and like how
Mhm,
you're going to communicate, and so you're filling that in for other people, and that's just not always going to be true.
mm,
And I think that that was really important for me to hear. And it was really important for me to also say, like, I don't want to not give people the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to not look for the good in people.
mm,
All of that is very important to me. But at the same time, it's also very important for me to be able to like see the reality of who a person is and
mm,
not let that like make me want to cut them out of my life entirely.
mm,
Cause I feel like that's sometimes what my brain wants me to do is
mm.
like, no, goodbye forever. And that's not realistic and that's not fair.
Where do you think that like immense sadness and all of that came from?
Well, I was right before I was about to get my period. So everything was very much heightened.
Relatable.
As we chat a lot about here,
Yeah,
everything was really heightened.
yeah.
But it was also like I was just wondering, is my instinct wrong about people
Mm.
sometimes? Is it just made me like question myself. And I said to my therapist, I was like, I feel like I am very triggering to this person. And she said, okay, you're saying that you're very triggering to this person. And I would say this person is very easily triggered. It's
Mm.
not about you.
You're not doing this.
This is not on you.
Yeah.
And it's not your burden or your job to like make this person feel okay.
Mm.
And this is something that we talk about all the time, but it's one of those things that feels new in the moment. Like for her to say that to me, I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. It's not my job to make this person feel better or to like make myself any different in order to make them comfortable. And I think that where the sadness came in was that I just felt I was questioning my own instinct and I was questioning myself and I felt very alone in the situation.
Mm.
It felt very similar to like how I felt in my family at times where like
Mm.
I'm the person to speak up about something
Mm.
and then I'm left out all alone or like penalized or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was just very, without getting into any specifics about the situation, it was just very loaded.
Mm.
And my therapist really helped me to unload it. Like literally at the end of the session, I said, I felt when I came in that I had all these things on me weighing me down. And now I just feel like they just fell off, like
Mm.
light as a feather.
Mm. Wow.
Another part of that was that I said to her, I kind of want to come up with like a game plan, or I feel like I wish that I had said something or done something differently. And I, kind of trying to think about what that would have been. And, you know, would it have been better for me to say, that really hurt my feelings, or that energy is too much for me and I will not be a part of this conversation if that's how it is. And she was like, you could do that, but that's also being vulnerable. And does
Yeah.
this person deserve your
Yes.
vulnerability?
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because thinking about it, if I had done that, like maybe my ego would feel a little bit better for a second that I'd like spoken up in that way.
Mm.
But I think that in the end, this person would have not been able to give me what I needed and been able to like hold the vulnerability with their own vulnerability. So
Right.
I feel like she did such a good job of reminding me that that's earned,
Yeah.
it's earned. I don't have to do that with everyone.
Right. Yeah, that's something that I've worked on a lot in therapy, and that's something my therapist has literally said to me too, is like,
Mm.
okay, let's like we only want to be vulnerable with safe people. We only want to be
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable with people who are able to show us vulnerability because we don't want this to be a one-way street because that's like a dangerous situation because then you're opening yourself up to something that is not going to see you. Like being vulnerable means that you're allowing yourself to be seen. And if that other person isn't able to meet you there and offer the same in return, then that's not a safe situation. And like I don't know about you, but with me like I have these friendships where I can be really vulnerable and I can feel really safe. And so now that is like my expectation in my
Mm-hmm.
friendships. And so I expect that with everybody I can be vulnerable. But actually sometimes to certain people like they want us to be vulnerable with them, but they're not going to offer that to us and that actually gives them like it's an unfair you're not on a level playing field, you know?
Yeah.
Like you want it to be a reciprocal relationship. And if there isn't vulnerability from the other side, then that's a red flag in a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like maybe you can still have a relationship with that person, but it's not the kind of relationship where you have like deep intimacy. Maybe it's like the like wider circle of friends, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Doesn't mean cutting them
Yeah.
out
Right.
necessarily. Yeah.
yeah, when she said that, I said to her, I think a lot about pendulum swings, which we talk about here too.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
think for such a large portion of my life, I was very guarded and definitely more like on a had more surface level relationships and like wasn't as open with people, wasn't as vulnerable. And now I've like swung to this other side where I'm like, I always want to be honest and I want to be open and I want to be vulnerable and say what I need to say, but that is earned. So like there's this middle port, there's so much room in the middle
Yeah.
of me being able to discern. Maybe for the first time that something happens, I do that and I see how it goes
Mm,
by being
yeah.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if I don't get a good response, then I can take a step back. Like
Right.
that's good for me to
Yeah.
take a step back and see how
Yeah.
things go. But to think about like all of the space in between, like being completely closed off and being completely open, it's important not to be on either end.
To not just see both of those ends as the two options.
Right. Yeah. And like stay at either one of those points,
Yeah. Yeah.
because not everyone has your best interest at heart. And
Yeah.
especially if we are filling in what we don't know about someone with what we know about ourselves, then we don't know,
Yeah.
you just don't know. And
Yeah.
I will continue to try to see the good in people and give people the benefit of the doubt, but I also have to trust that when they show me, then that's
That's who
something
they
I
are.
need to take into account.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of that concept of testing that my therapist really encouraged me to test people, not in a manipulative way, but just in a way of like allowing, like, open yourself up a little and see how they respond, and then use that information to guide your next step. Like, it's a good thing to test people. It's a good thing to see how they respond to different situations because otherwise we do fill it in with whatever our imagination wants to put in there. And that's not the reality of who they are. That's who we have created them to be in our minds. And that leads to a lot of disappointment because we have certain expectations of them and they're not going to meet them because that's not who they are. That's who we've decided they are. So like the
Mhm.
whole like concept of testing and essentially you're dating. Like you're dating friends and seeing who you want to be close with and who like are your people and who are your wider circle of people and who are not your people at all.
Mhm.
And like that concept of testing, I don't know, that really helps me. And I used to think it was really manipulative, like this idea of like testing people, but you're not
Mhm.
doing it with a manipulative mindset. You're not like trying
Yeah.
to make them do a certain thing. You're just seeing who they are in like everyday situation by being authentic, not like manufacturing things, but just being authentic and saying how you feel and
Mhm. On that note,
yeah.
it's funny because I was talking to my therapist in a previous session and I was saying that I really don't want to be manipulative or seen
Right.
as being manipulative and like it's very important for me to work from a place of integrity and she was like, "Arielle, manipulation is not necessarily a bad thing. There is good manipulation and there is bad manipulation."
So
Like,
say more about that. I'm
okay.
curious about that.
So,
Because one of my
whenever
like biggest fears, one of my biggest fears is manipulating people. Like that's the last thing I want to do.
yes.
That
So,
really scares me.
yeah,
Yeah. So I'm
same.
curious.
So she's like, you can use it in multiple ways. So, like, if you are using it for evil and it's a bad manipulation,
Yeah.
you are trying to get someone to do something that is bad for them and good for you.
Mm.
If it's a good manipulation, like
Mhm.
whenever we are in relationship with someone else, there's a certain amount of like shifting tactics, shifting the way that you're going to say something, the way you're going to bring something up. Even if I like need to bring up a conflict,
Yeah.
there's a certain amount of how can I get the best outcome out of this for me, for us?
Mm.
So I'm going to think about that and manipulate my response in order to
Mm.
try to get that outcome. So, like, if I'm in conflict with someone, I'm going to start by saying, "Hey, I really love you. I love our friendship. And that's why I really want to have this conversation."
Yeah.
It's not bad manipulation, but it is manipulation to an extent of you've changed your behavior and the way that you might normally have done this in order to try to get a better outcome. And that is good. That's
Mm.
good. That's smart. That's emotionally intelligent.
Mm.
And then to like move forward and say, when you did this thing, it hurt my feelings, whatever. But like you're setting the groundwork with a certain amount of what we wouldn't normally call manipulation, but it's
Yeah.
good.
Right. I'm really curious what the dictionary definition of manipulation is.
Look it
Let's
up.
see.
Let's
Okay,
see.
so it says the action of, all right. This is the worst definition of all time. It uses the word in the sentence in the
Mm,
definition.
great.
That's not how you're supposed to
No.
Oxford languages. You fucked up. The action of manipulating something in a skillful full manner. That's the definition of manipulation apparently.
Okay.
All right, what about other definitions? To manage or to utilize skillfully, to control or play upon by artful, unfair, or insidious means, especially to one's own advantage. So that would be bad
So
manipulation.
that's bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to manage or utilize skillfully is part A of this definition. And then part B would be to control or play upon by artful, unfair, insidious means, especially to one's own advantage. So that seems like the positive definition and then the
Mm-hmm.
negative definition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So,
the first one could be you're using skills of communication that you've used, that you've learned in order to get a better outcome.
right. Also, like the sentence that it has here, quantify our data and manipulate it statistically. Like that, when you're using it in math or in data, I
It's
mean, correct me if
neutral.
I'm wrong, it's neutral, right? It's like it just means you're just applying like a certain methodology and
Mm-hmm.
like changing the way that it looks, but the data itself stays the same. It doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's a neutral term. It's not a negative thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like there it's a word that has potentially been like twisted into only something bad,
Right.
especially in terms of like human behavior. But yeah, the way that she described it to me, I was like, this makes sense. Like that makes sense to me. You're navigating, it's like improv. You're like navigating a situation and what's your objective and what tactics are you going to use to try to get that objective? And maybe it's a
Yeah.
very good objective for both of you. You know,
Right.
it can be a positive thing.
Right. I just think of the word manipulation as having such negative meanings. Like that.
Hmm. Like you're insidious and you're only out for yourself and you want to cause harm for other people and like take advantage of other people.
Yeah, that or you just that you don't care about other people. You only care about yourself. I think that's
Hmm.
more of the definition for me is it's just like just looking out for yourself, not looking out for anybody else. Not necessarily wanting
Yeah.
harm for other people, but just not really caring about them
Yeah. Like
or
a
what the
level
outcome is
of
for them.
narcissism where it's like, I want the best outcome for me.
Right.
And
And
that
that
doesn't
is
have
like
to be.
that is a the bad part of manipulation is one of the symptoms of narcissism and a lot of
Hmm.
the behavioral like personality disorders. So that does make sense, but yeah, I think I definitely still have like the word manipulation. Like maybe we call it something else. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I
It
think
just is so strong in my mind.
it can
Yeah.
definitely be categorized as something else. Like you
Right.
don't have to say it's manipulation, but
Right.
it was interesting for me for her to like switch it around on me. I was like, that's
Yeah.
so interesting.
Yeah. And I do also wonder like part of me thinks if you are constantly thinking, I do not want to manipulate someone, then you're probably not the type of person that is manipulating people
Yeah.
because you're aware of it and you're like on guard for it. You're constantly thinking about it in your relationships of like, oh, I don't want to be doing this, the bad
Hmm.
version of it. You're most likely not a person who's doing it all the time if it's something that you're actively thinking about with someone without even someone like telling you, hey, I feel like you've done this, you know?
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
on guard for it, you're most likely not doing it, I
I
think.
agree.
Yeah. Of course
It's
you
like when
can
you
be, but
say, I am scared that I'm going to be a bad parent. Chances are you're going to be a, a good parent because you're worried about being a bad parent.
I was listening to We Can Do Hard Things,
Hmm.
the podcast, and she was talking about how I don't remember what the context was for this situation, but she was talking about how when she was a teacher and they would have parent teacher conferences that or not parent teacher, they were like homework nights. So they would teach the parents how to help their kids with the homework. And the first thing she would say was like, if you're here, you don't need to be here. You're already going to do an amazing job. I know that because you showed up. You want to be
Mm.
here. And so clearly you have the intent to want to help your child. And therefore you're going to be amazing at it.
Mm-hmm.
That's like all the kid needs is your like deep desire to want to help them and acting upon it. So I feel like it's the same situation of like, if you're the one thinking of it already, most likely you're not the one that is doing the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
all about intention and like,
Yeah.
do I want something bad for this person or do I want something that's good for the two of us? You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
Do I want something that's good for me that who knows how it'll be for the other person, but I need to speak up in order to try to get this thing for me. Like that's okay too.
And I think manipulation is also about control. It's like controlling the other person. And so recognizing that the other person has agency and wanting them to do what's actually right for them, even if it isn't. Like if you're wanting something for you and speaking up about it and wanting something good for the other person and knowing that there might be a gap there and trying to figure out how to close that gap if possible, like that is the positive form of manipulation to me.
Mm-hmm.
And like thinking deeply about how you approach it and the mindset you're in when you have that conversation and all of those like positive factors that might manipulate the conversation in a positive direction. Like
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to have hard conversations when we're like emotionally triggered, like
Yeah.
that, like knowing that and waiting for ourselves to calm down to have deep conversations, like that's positively manipulating something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like that reframe around manipulation. I think that's really helpful. Thank you, therapist.
Yeah. Thanks, Tiffany. Love
Tiff,
you. I do love her.
how did you find her? I'm just curious. Did you
I
find her in
found her.
the website?
Oh, my friend who is a social worker
Uh-huh.
told me to go on psychologytoday.com and you can filter based on your insurance and where you live and
Mm,
like what you're looking for in a practitioner. And then
okay.
some of the like you can reach out to whoever pops up. Some of the people it's like a little bit outdated or maybe they don't fully take your insurance or
Yeah.
they're not taking new clients, whatever. But I found it to be so helpful because I was looking for someone who does parts work, internal family systems work, and she does. And maybe at some point we could talk more about what that is. But
Yeah.
I have
Nope.
heard multiple podcasts about it and I'm obsessed with it. And so the fact that she did that, we had like a little intro session and I talked to her about how that's what I really wanted. And I also talked to her about how like I was ready for a therapist that is going to challenge me and
Mm,
is going to help me like push my boundaries, especially with this new business stuff, but like in me going through this big transition of moving. But like,
yeah.
I really want someone who's going to hold me accountable and challenge me.
Yeah.
And I feel like she's really done that
Yeah.
so far
Mm,
in like a kind and gentle way.
mm. I have someone in my life right now who was also recently looking for a therapist that was covered by their insurance, and they used the website Alma,
Mm-hmm.
and they seem to have had a good experience with that. So that's another option
Mm-hmm.
just for our listeners. If you are looking for a therapist that's covered by your insurance, you have a couple of different resources there.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds
Yeah.
like both good experiences with that. And actually, this person was also looking for somebody who does IFS. So
Mm.
a lot
Did
of
they find someone?
synchronicity there. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they did.
Cool.
Well, I'm so glad we had this conversation.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
I learned so much from this conversation. I'm learning so much from your therapist. Please thank her
Thank you,
for her
Tiffany. We
wisdom.
love you so much. I
So
love you, and
much.
I've had like 4 sessions with you, and I'm obsessed with you.
But like
Yeah.
in a cute way, not in a scary way.
In a manipulative, really scary way.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Seems right for you.
Yep.
Totally.
All right, everyone. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
See you in a couple weeks. Bye.
Bye.